All right, John. So last time we actually got to talk about the greatest NES games of all time in our journey to find out what the greatest game of all time is. And this week I put out the poll for, well, initially just, I went a little too granular, I think, where it was like Commodore 64, the Amiga, ZX Spectrum, the MSX, the Sharp X68000. I should have really just went 80s PC. And that's how we're breaking it down because that's just how it kind of ends up. It's just a lot of different 80s PC games and how that all go. But that didn't get a lot of votes. It got enough that I feel like I'm confident in tallying it. So we're also tossing in the Atari 2600. So we got all that in there. But what's your familiarity with those two systems or those, well,
A
an
bunch of
era and a
systems.
system?
That era, I suppose, yeah. So but we're not counting DOS, are we?
I didn't count DOS on this, so I'm just going to have people roll DOS into 90s PC games because it's such a wide range. PC evolves so much when you look at beginning of 90s to the end of the 90s, like when you get to close to 2000. It is wild because you start out with Doom and stuff like that, and you end with Commander Keen and end with SimCity 2000 and that era of stuff, you know?
I was born mid-90s, so this stuff definitely predates me. And unlike a lot of other stuff that predates me, there isn't a whole lot of history on it on the internet. Like, a lot of our history encompasses Nintendo and Sega. It's rare that we get very many YouTubers or websites that dedicate themselves to the ZX Spectrum and all of those systems. But I did come across them growing up. My uncle has a ZX Spectrum. In schools, we had a couple of them too. So I've definitely used them and seen them, but my knowledge of the overall library is pretty limited.
Same here. I am not. I've never had any of the. I'll say it right now. Outside of a couple, I've never played any of these games. This was beyond my time. My first PC was a Tandy, and we were playing stuff like Old Frogger and things like that. I haven't even heard of these. I heard Commodore 64. I'm like, is that like the N64? Like, it confused me so much. I have seen a few retrospectives on a few of these titles that made it in. I think that, and that's definitely going to be a thing here. I think this list missed out on maybe some of the important examples from this time frame. But that's again, the weakness of a popularity poll is what are people familiar with? And nobody's really familiar with this era, at least as far as younger ones go. So
Right. I got an Atari 2600 on my 18th birthday because I thought that'd just be a cool thing to own. I love the wood grain designs. That was one thing I just wanted to have. So I played a good handful of 2600 games. Whether they'll make it on the list, we'll see. But we're combining 2600 and 80s PC into one list.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, not one list, two separate lists for each. So we got a top 10 for each just to keep it fair. Because I'm not going to have them compare because otherwise we'd have no
be a lot
80s PC games on here.
A lot of overlap
so
there.
We had to have two separate lists.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the 80s PC list on here. As far as my, although for Atari, my dad had an Atari. So whenever I went to my grandparents, they had it hooked up, and that's why I would play it and have just all of his old games, which shockingly he had a lot more games than I would have thought, knowing my dad. Like, man, he really went all out for this.
Wow.
Because he didn't really play a lot of games after that point. So, so I'm not even going to ask if you're familiar with number 10 for what this is.
So
we did not get a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. You can try if you want, but I don't think you're going to guess.
Well, I was going to say
say,
Wolfenstein or something. The first 2D Wolfenstein. I'm guessing.
Believe it or not,
that.
the first 2D Wolfenstein did not make it on here. Though that might be because I put it's technically a DOS game, so I did exclude DOS. I might have been screwed over by that. But I should also mention that 20 whole votes, 20 plus votes on this one. But we did get 73 different games from those votes. So that's at least a decent amount of variety. Now, the 10th most popular game with a whole 20 votes is the Maze of Gallius.
Maze of Gallius.
You have any idea what that is?
It sounds like an 80s PC game.
Yes. So this is actually a Konami game for the MSX family computer.
Whoa.
Released in Japan in April 1987, and then actually came to Europe in 87. It did get, it says Family Computer, so I'm going to assume that's Famicom. I think it
Hmm.
got a port to the Famicom in 87 as well. Apparently, this is part of the Nightmare series, and that's Night with a K.
Oh.
Basically, it's a platform adventure. You'll play a little knight, you have a little, you climb ladders and whatnot, you fight enemies. It's just a simple little guy fighting enemies, and there you go. It's actually the second game in the series. Um, And according to this, according to the Wikipedia, as I'm looking at this, the game's exploration bits were utilized for Castlevania 2 later on.
Oh, that is interesting.
So there is some, definitely some,
Some good history there.
yeah, absolutely some good history here. It's actually apparently due to, very similar to the Vampire Killer on MSX, where they took the original Castlevania and connected it all
Hmm.
in a sort of pseudo Metroidvania, but not really. Rather than just level by level. So think that. Um, Funny enough, it beat a rare game just by 1 point.
Ah.
Otherwise, Jetpack
I
would have
was
made
gonna
it.
guess Jetpack. I knew there'd be some
Yes.
rare on here. Yeah.
Yeah. Believe it or not, a rare game did not make the top 10. Jetpack was the closest at
Ah.
with that. And I only know Jetpack because of Donkey Kong 64, because wasn't that included in Donkey Kong 64?
I believe it was. Yeah. I played Jetpack a bunch in Rare Replay as well. There were quite a few very early Rare games in there. That was a cool
Mhm.
way to experience that. But a lot of this stuff, like if you were old enough to appreciate it in its time, like it came out at this point about 45 years ago. Let's say you were 10 or 15, then you'll be coming up to your like late 50s, 60s. This is why this stuff isn't
Yeah,
really that documented. So how many 60
not
year
at
olds are
all.
making YouTube videos?
Just off topic real quick.
Hmm.
One of the first text adventure games ever, Colossal Cave Adventure, which was hugely influential for the series, actually has been remade by I'm creators of King's Quest and Space Quest, and all those the husband and wife duo.
Hmm.
They got a team together just to remake this with graphics and whatnot to just give people a sense of, like, here's the game. It plays the same, but you actually can see what you're doing this time around. It actually
That's
has
cool.
graphics, so there is at least some effort to preserve some of these old games, but it's a struggle. Like, you don't
Yeah.
hear anybody talk about that remake of Colossal Cave Adventure, but
No.
it's still something. Like, it's efforts are made. It's just not as well known.
Sure.
Number nine. What do you think made number nine? I will say you have heard of this game.
I have heard of it. Okay. There's a few games on the tip of my tongue. I'm not going to guess Metal Gear because that's another MSX, and I don't think we'll have two in a row. Um, I'll say Wizardry.
It is not Wizardry.
Okay.
The original SimCity.
Okay.
I was shocked by this. I did not realize SimCity came out in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a very long time.
I had no idea it was that old, but
Mm.
cool, I guess.
Yeah.
um, Number eight. This is another one I've never heard of.
Okay.
Uh, this is Mule.
Mule.
MULE. Like, it's apparently it stands for multiple use labor element.
Do I know
Um,
this?
it is a Commodore 6.
I recognize the box. I think. Do I know this game? Maybe I don't.
Got ported a lot. It's like it's all over the place as far as this, but apparently it originally came out for Atari 8-bit computers by Ozark Softscape.
Hmm.
It was published by Electronic Arts. It's actually one of the first of 5 games from the new company Electronic Arts.
Whoa.
So this is definitely old school here. Basically, it's an old kind of what should I put? Not life sim, but you're like building up a resource. It's a resource management kind of
Hmm.
here, because you're it's a competition between 4 players where you're each trying to get the certain resources and then have the I guess the most I don't know how to exactly
Yeah.
explain it, but yeah, you're basically just trying to get the most resources and be the best mule.
It seems very ahead of its time, just looking at screenshots.
Yeah, it. I mean, again, this came out originally in 1983.
Yeah,
These are concepts that are still going on
for sure.
to this day, so that's pretty wild. And that's what I find fascinating about these old games is the origin points for a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, all right, number 7. You've heard of this game.
I've heard of it. Okay.
You've heard of it.
Prince of Persia.
It is not Prince of
Oh.
Persia. It is Oregon Trail.
Okay. Yeah. That's a cool
Which,
choice.
as soon as I saw that, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oregon Trail. People have a very deep appreciation. Like the memories go back for Oregon Trail. I played Oregon Trail as a kid.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't know if this is one I've actually played myself. I've heard so much about it, but I'm pretty sure I've never gone hands on with it.
It was such a fixture of schools
Mm.
when I was growing up. Like it was every PC had number muncher, which didn't quite make it onto this. I think that's because it was labeled as DOS, so it might got screwed. But it had number muncher and it had Oregon Trail, and everybody. I mean, as a kid, the most entertaining part was like when you went and hunted. So I just do the hunting mini game a bunch and get far too much meat. But yeah, so yeah, Oregon Trail, yeah, as that got the chat active. It's like there was nobody had anything to comment. It's like I don't know anything about these games, but it was like, oh yeah, died of dysentery, best educational games of all time. Yeah, it's an educational game, and it got this. It's number 7 on here. That's pretty impressive.
I'm going to guess that Math Blaster didn't show up because I remember Math Blaster being on our school computers.
I don't think so. I don't remember Math Blaster being up there. Actually, Number Munchers did make it onto the list as far as what got here, but no Math Blaster. Sorry to say. Number 6. I think you've heard of this. It's the start of a series.
Okay. Ultima?
Not Ultima.
Uh-huh.
Close though. Well, not close, but it's a completely different genre. Sid Meier's Pirates.
Oh, sure. Okay. I would not have guessed that, but yeah.
Yeah. I've played a bunch. I played the most recent one, and it is a good game. I don't know how it compares. The most recent one compares to the original, but Civilization still plays mostly the same as its original, so I don't think it's that crazy. But yeah, Sid Meier's Pirates. I think it makes sense. I think it's a lot of fun. So all those. Actually, you know what? You're kind of right because it's actually there's a tie between 5 and 6, so it's kind of moot which one's higher.
Sure.
Ultima, I did have here at number 5, not Ultima 1, Ultima 5.
Okay. Yeah, they got a bunch out in a small time span with Ultima, didn't they?
Oh yeah, they put out a bunch, but I'm very glad Ultima got represented on this list, because it is one of the origin points of the entire RPG genre.
Yeah,
it is a massively influential game, whether it's Western or Japanese RPGs, and that along with Wizardry, and Wizardry did not make the list. Wizardry, I think, is too old and too basic, and not enough people have played it. It's Wizardry's time has passed, for sure. But again, it and Ultima were just if you made an RPG back in the 80s, you're taking elements from this. Dragon Quest took elements from these, all of them. Name a RPG from this. It's like how they take D&D and make it a game. There you go.
Yeah, you covered this very
but
well
Ultima 5
in the first Dragon Quest video you did. For those curious about more of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fascinating to see just how influential it was. Ultima 5 though is particularly special in its own way because you have your basic RPG plot for 1, 2, and 3 in Ultima, and then Ultima 4 you're sort of trying to put forward this age of enlightenment. There's not technically a villain. You're just trying to go around the world and exemplify these 8 virtues that represent the world, and just try to you just do those quests in order to get those virtues, and once you get all 8, you win, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
But Ultima 5 has your character who's technically from the real world and goes to the world of Ultima, or I forget the actual name of the place, Britannia, I believe. And you get back there after some time has passed, and this new priest or something has taken over, and he has corrupted all of them. So they took what their virtues were, and all of a sudden, here's how they could be misconstrued into something bad. And all of a sudden, you have to, it just was an interesting storytelling device for its time. Like it's even now, like here's something you worked on for a long, like the entire last game. Now it's been corrupted, and you have to fix it.
Yeah, Dragon Quest Builders style.
Yeah, exactly. All right, number 4. You've heard of this one? I don't know if you've ever played it.
Okay, I was going to guess Prince of Persia again, but I guess it's not that. Let's think. Let's search the old mind bank. I'm gonna say maybe I'm tapped out on any knowledge. What Load Runner wasn't DOS, was it?
I don't know.
I'm gonna guess it's not Load Runner though. Okay, what is it?
Maniac Mansion.
I do know Maniac Mansion. Okay.
Yeah. One of the early, not Sierra, LucasArts.
Yes.
Adventure games. So I've never played it myself, but I know people love it. It's the precursor to Day of the Tentacle, which I think gets a lot more love from adventure game fans. But Maniac Mansion is sort of the idea. I think it's you get in there and it's basically just trying to escape a haunted house or some kind of house. You're trying to find a way out there. So there's a lot of different things that can happen as you play through.
And this was on NES as well, I believe.
Yes, yeah. It's a game that's been ported a lot and remade and all that. But it technically did come out on the 80s for these old systems. So it counts. All right, number 3.
All right. I've said 2 already that I feel like should be on here. Is Castle Wolfenstein in these top 3 anywhere?
No, there's no Wolfenstein in that. I don't think a Wolfenstein made the list at all.
That's surprising. 'Cause I'm pretty sure the first one wasn't DOS exclusive.
No, but it wasn't. It definitely allowed it, but I think people are more used to Wolfenstein 3D. I don't even think I realized there was a non-3D Wolfenstein.
All right, well,
kind of like Duke Nukem being 3D. It's like, oh, the old games were actually 2D. I did not know that.
Prince of Persia must be in the top 3. That's a big Apple II game. But Metal Gear has got to be in the top 3 as well. I'll say this one's Prince of Persia.
You are correct.
Okay.
This is Prince of Persia.
All right.
I mean, that again, we're working off popularity here. Of course, Prince of Persia is going to be there. It's a tough as nails game, but it is impressive. For sure.
Yeah. You get a Apple II port of this in the Wii version of Forgotten Sands as an extra, and that's cool because it's usually like later versions that get ported. It's cool just playing the original, but yeah, it's tough as nails. There was a remake done with like Sands of Time models on 360, like Prince of Persia Classic or something. That's a cool way to play it. But yeah, really hard, but really impressive, especially the animation.
Especially because you look at the how Jordan Mechner got that animation. It's just his brother making the motions.
Yeah.
And, all right, we'll do this. All right, number 2.
I'm gonna say this is Metal Gear for the MSX.
It was Metal Gear for the MSX.
Okay.
Guess how most people probably played this one. They made it available as part of a legendary series. Yeah, Metal Gear is going to make it.
And it holds up. It's still a really good game. It's in the HD collection. It's in the Legacy, the Master Collection. Yeah, they're really good games. Much better than the NES versions, which were kind of not very good games.
No, I mean, I'll put it this way. While Metal Gear was mentioned for the NES list, it didn't get even nearly as many points as this Metal Gear on MSX. Number 1, I think you know it.
Do I know it?
I think you know it.
This is gonna kill me when I figure it out.
If you don't, I think it will.
I've said Wizardry already. You said Wizardry's not on the list.
Wizardry's not on the list. Wizardry got votes, but it did not make the top 10.
All right, tell me what it is, and I'm gonna whack myself when I figure it out. but you tell me.
Metal Gear 2.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay.
I told you, I told you're gonna whack yourself.
I, I was expecting something different, a different franchise, but no, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't limit to like, nope, you can only vote one per franchise. It's like, no. It's just whatever. If you like multiple games from a series, go for it. But everybody recognizes that Metal Gear 2 is better than Metal Gear. It's actually shockingly good, even in comparison. Like, it fixes a lot of the issues of the original and really is sort of like the precursor to Solid.
Yeah, very much so. A lot of the mechanics are straight from it too. If you've played Metal Gear on the Game Boy Color, that's very much more of the MSX games in terms of how they play, and they both hold up really well. This will be this list is interesting because the top votes are very much known established franchises today, whereas everything else ranges from famous to a little bit more obscure. But I reckon if we like somehow found thousands of people who lived through this era, they would give us a very, very different list.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like we would definitely get a very different list if we actually had people that played through this era. I wish I could have had access to that, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
still, it's a good pool, though.
Yeah, I think this is still a solid list. It feels weird to me not to have Wizardry on there, to not have Rogue on there. Rogue didn't even get a single vote, and Rogue literally started the roguelike genre.
Right.
Yeah, that's the lineup of our 80s PC games. So let's move on to the Atari 2600. This time we had over 40 submissions, totaling 105 different games.
Wow.
So a lot more variety this time.
Combat better be at number one. I love combat.
Okay, we'll still have to see. So let's start it off.
All right.
What is number 10, John?
Number 10.
Also, I don't know if you've heard of this, but I have never heard of it.
Well, I've never heard. Okay, well, I've probably never heard of.
I've never heard of it. You might have heard of it. I don't know.
Right. Okay. Let's say you've probably heard of Yar's Revenge. I'm gonna say Yar's Revenge though.
It is not Yar's Revenge.
Okay.
Berserk with a Z.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of Berserk.
Oh, you've heard of Berserk? Okay, yeah, I've not heard of Berserk. From my understanding, it's a maze shooter. Basically, you just go, there's robots littered around the room, and they try to shoot at the player, and you got to dodge them. And it kind of seems like an evil version of Smash TV. I guess is my best comparison.
Yeah, it's a cool pick. Yeah, I think I was expecting this to not quite make the list, but it's a neat one to have.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's certainly unique.
Yeah,
definitely in its way. All right, number 9.
Okay, I've got to imagine that Pitfall is pretty high, so I don't know if I'll say Pitfall yet. I'll say Asteroids.
It is not Asteroids.
Okay.
It is Breakout.
Okay, yeah, very, very nice, very simple one.
Yep. You can't do bad with Breakout.
Atari is very good with multiple controllers too, like the little twist knob for Breakout. So
yeah,
it's probably one of the best versions of Breakout, to be honest, with how you control it.
It really is. I didn't have original. My dad didn't have the original Breakout. He had Super Breakout, so that's what I voted for, which actually also did well. Super Breakout came in at number 12.
Okay.
Yeah, that was shocking. All right, number 8.
Number 8, I'm gonna say is.
I will say for the rest of the list, you've heard of all these games.
Okay. Number 8 is Missile Command.
It is not Missile Command. Okay. It is Centipede.
Oh yeah. Okay.
A lot of arcade ports among these, of course. Makes sense. That was sort of the big deal. It's like playing in the arcades, and hey, play it at home, and they sold a bunch.
Yeah, it's a cool pick. Yeah,
it's Centipede. All right, number 7.
I'm gonna guess, just based on popularity, that some people voted for Mario Brothers on Atari. Is that true?
People did vote for Mario Brothers. It did not make the list.
Okay, it's not the best version of Mario Brothers, but I thought maybe it'd turn up here.
I mean, people voted for the original Pac-Man, so I'm a little concerned
Yeah,
about them.
definitely not the best version.
Yeah, Mario Brothers only got 7 votes, so definitely did not make it. But people, you know, think about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll say this one is Pitfall. I think Pitfall should be pretty high, but I think maybe it turns up around here.
It is not Pitfall.
Okay.
It is Combat.
No, Combat's one of the best ones. People
It is. It's a top 10.
Yeah. Well, yeah. People still say, like, the reason to play We Play is for we play tanks, or in Clubhouse games, they love the tanks. So that is Combat. It's exactly what Combat is. Whenever people like come over and they're intrigued by the Atari 2600, we pull out Combat. You get 2 controllers in, you just shoot each other with tanks. There's like a bunch of different modes. Combat's the best.
I never got to play it the way it's supposed to be played, but I mean, I would turn it on and it would, you know, the other tank wouldn't move, but I thought it was cool how the shots bounced off the walls and stuff. Like there's actual strategy there. It's a fun little game.
It's a very fun little game. Yeah.
So hard to go wrong with that. But all right, number 6.
Number 6 is.
This is our first one to break over 100 votes.
Okay. This one is going to be... Oh, I'm thinking about ones I've already said. I don't want to keep repeating them. This one will be Space Invaders.
It is not Space Invaders. You have said it already, though. It's Missile Command.
Okay, Missile Command. Sure, that means I can keep repeating the other ones to guess over and over again.
I guess I can give the clue that you have guessed all the rest except for one.
Okay, all right.
Of the remainder ones. But again, I didn't play it on the Atari 2600. It was on old PCs in the school that Missile Command was available, and it was fun.
Yeah.
You're never going to win, but you're just like setting off missiles in order to stop missiles from destroying your city, and it did feel kind of devastating when your city got destroyed.
Yeah. I love Press Play to Jason says, to the people who said Pac-Man 2600, I have to recommend a therapist.
Yeah. Let's see. Pac-Man got, let me see here. I gotta find it. I got 39 points. It's actually, let's see, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It was 17th highest voted.
Well, that's quite scary, actually.
It is a little concerning, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know E.T. got a vote, but I'm not sure if that was like facetious or not.
I've heard people say that they unironically like E.T., and maybe that was that person.
It got a single vote.
Okay.
It's not 39 people, it's 39 points. So people put it higher or lower. It's like, again, if this is your number 1 game, you get 10 points. So your number 10 game gets 1 point. And that I compare it to I tally it up with everybody else's. And that's how these totals get figured out.
But 39 is still quite a considerable amount, considering.
Yeah. With the least amount of people, that gets 3 number 1s and 1 number 2. That's concerning. But I don't think that's how it broke down. It just Pac-Man kept ending up. I think it's just like I played it. Yeah, I haven't played a lot of Atari 2600, so it's one I played.
Yeah.
I think that's how it comes down to. Anyway, number 5.
So all but one I've already said. Is this a repeat or is this a fresh one?
You mean
as in,
one that you've already said?
Yeah.
It's one you've already said.
Okay, so this one will be Yar's Revenge?
It is not Yar's Revenge.
Okay.
It is Asteroids.
Asteroids. Yeah, nice simple one.
Yeah. That one frustrated me as a kid. My dad had this one, and I'd turn it on and be like, yeah, it's cool. I'm shooting these rocks, but I'm always going to die. That's the thing that got me with these older games. Going back to them is I could beat the NES games, but it's all arcade stuff that you never win at. And
yeah.
I don't know. It's always tricky trying to like move. Like I wanted to stay still for as long as possible playing Asteroids because I felt like as soon as I started moving, I was going to die.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't shoot and control and I have too much momentum. Granted, as a kid, I've not gone back.
It's still quite a difficult game to control, very slippery. But by design though, because you're meant to be like maneuvering or shooting, so that you got that you look like give up moving to aim around and shoot. So it works around its limitations, but it's definitely a very hard game.
Yeah. All right. Number 4.
Number 4. This one's Yar's Revenge.
It is not Yar's
That's
Revenge.
gonna be like number 1 now, isn't it?
Space Invaders.
Space Invaders, yeah.
You'd think it'd be higher, but this is the Atari version, and I mean, I played it. It's Space Invaders. It's what you'd expect.
Do the youth know Space Invaders? Is that a game that's carried forward with time?
I feel like there's been like a few attempts at like doing like a Pac-Man Championship Edition version of Space Invaders. I don't think it's quite to the same level, but I mean, Space Invaders was hugely influential for the longest time. The arcade was just made up of Space Invaders clones.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of like early Nokia phones had Space Invaders, but I think it's rare to see it on smartphones as much these days. Maybe it isn't.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But yeah. Either way, it's fun. It's that's all you can really say about these old ones, for most of them. All right, number 3.
Number 3. This one's probably gonna be Yar's Revenge, but I'm gonna say this one's Pitfall.
It's Yar's Revenge.
Okay, it's shown up. All right, it showed itself.
Yeah, it only beat Space Invaders by 4 points.
Okay.
But yeah, Yar's Revenge. I've heard of it, but I've never played it. It looks like it's another shooter game, but instead of a horizontal shooter, it's still single screen, but it's a side shooter.
Yeah.
Horizontal. So I mean, that's cool. That's interesting. It's so interesting. I think it did well because WayForward just released that Yar's Rising.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I can see people looking it up and seeing what it is. But it's funny that Yar's Rising, I think, ended up being it's an action adventure game, so it's not a shooter at all. So yeah, I don't know the exact reason, but it was well received. A lot of people definitely enjoyed.
It's definitely one of the more famous games. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Sure.
there's 2 left.
There's 2 left. What you've predicted before.
Pitfall's probably number 1, I think. And so number 2 is one I haven't said. Like River Raid?
It is not River Raid.
Okay.
River Raid was just River Raid beat out Pac-Man and tied with Frogger.
Okay. I don't know what number 2 is then.
John, you're breaking my heart here. This is a massively influential one.
Yeah.
Adventure.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, without this we wouldn't have got like Zelda.
Yeah. It's you use your manual, you find your stuff. It changes up each time. You can change the difficulty. Like Adventure was a big one.
Yeah.
My dad had it. I couldn't figure it out, but I played it.
Yeah, this is one that I've dabbled in, never made it too far, but I appreciate what it does there.
Yeah, it's pretty important. It's one of those starting points for a lot of genres. So, and yeah, number 1,
Pitfall. Yeah.
Pitfall. The only one to break into over 200 points at 207. I've never played Pitfall before, but I was shocked to see Pitfall just climb so high.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's
I didn't
basically.
realize Pitfall was that beloved.
Yeah, I mean, there were other like jumping games before this, but this kind of cemented them. It still plays really well today as well. Lots of great animation too, like being able to jump on a swinging vine. Like, there's nothing really like that on the Atari.
It's true. Man, I'll have to try it out because I've never tried a Pitfall game. I've heard of them all the time, but I think it's one of the earliest, I know it's from Activision.
Yeah.
This is an Activision game, like back when Activision was first starting out. And yeah, it came out all the way back in 1982.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Just what can you say? It really is just I guess what's different looking at the development side of things. The environments were not hard coded in. It was constantly generated by code. So it was constantly changing up on you. So it's in a way, it's almost like an automatic runner, except you take your own time.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, you can move your own pace and jump whenever you want to, but I suppose it has elements of that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is a fun little quote here. The game's creator, David Crane, said initially the number of lives in the game were only one, but it was changed to three in the final week of development, saying that my buddies practically tied me to my chair until I put in extra lives, and I'm glad they did. Oh gosh. Oh, this is classic Atari stuff. To promote the game, Activision held a promotion between November 15th and December 13th, 1982, in various markets across the U.S. for a chance to win $5,000 in gold.
In gold?
Just in gold, sure. Oh gosh, but yeah, a lot of comparisons to Donkey Kong, but interesting quote here is like inspiration didn't lead to imitation. So yeah, Pitfall was highly regarded.
Yeah.
And Activision will never do anything else with it.
Probably not. But it's a very different game to DK. Like it's adventure focused in a way. Like it feels like kind of like Indiana Jones, I suppose, being able to just pull off all these like actual jumps rather than Mario being very stiff in Donkey Kong.
Yeah, just having single screen. Well, again, horizontal rather than vertical and all that usual stuff. That amazing how a change in motion changed about it. People actually perceive it and play it. But I think this is a pretty good list. Looking through, like I can't think of anything else I would really put up there. Some other ones that didn't quite make it. Miss Pac-Man just missed it at number 11. 63. And Miss Pac-Man is definitely a better game than Pac-Man. Like they learned their lesson. Once again, Super Breakout at number 12. Hero, Hero, like a little dot in between. I don't know what that is. At 13, Dig Dug, and then Frogger and River Raid tied for 15.
Cool. I expected Dig Dug and Frogger somewhere. But I was thinking maybe not, so that they're more their legacy's more tied to the arcades, but they're pretty good versions.
And I will have an arcade vote, but the arcade vote is going to be rough as far as like, how do I break that up?
It's difficult because arcade spans decades.
Yeah. Like, do I do eras of arcade or do I just do all arcade? I don't know.
I think if you were to do arcade, that people would generally vote for legacy arcade anyway, because modern arcade is, like, even though there are games, it's less of a thing.
Yeah, the most modern arcade game I can think getting voted on would be like Hydro Thunder, stuff of that ilk. Expect arcade is where we're going to get a lot of fighting games also. So, but yeah, that is our Atari 2600 and 80s PC list. We're going to do something a little bit more popular next time to get a little bit more votes in. We'll switch it back and forth between these as on our quest for the what is the greatest games of all time. And so I'll be putting out the call on my Blue Sky once again. And I'll have a separate call just so I don't have to go through the comments constantly on this on the channel for you guys who don't use social media to vote for your top 10 Game Boy games. So again, make sure to rank them from 1 to 10 so I can properly count them with since 1 point, number 1 gets 10 points and number 10 gets 1 point, and break it down that way. So yeah, that is the idea there. So I think we're going to get a bit more votes this time, John.
I have a lot more to say about Game Boy than I do this era.
I'm not saying what you would vote for, but what do you think the popular opinion is for the greatest Game Boy game? And by the way, this is going to be a combination of Game Boy and Game Boy Color. They're similar enough.
I don't know if it's too simple to say Tetris, but I think Tetris probably will still come out on top.
It's why I didn't vote for Tetris on NES. Is I associate Tetris so much more with Game Boy. Is it my number 1? I don't know, but I think it'll end up on the most lists, and I think that's how Mario 3 just dominated the NES video.
Do we count Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow as all the same vote? Because they will probably get a lot of votes.
I feel like I'll probably have like Pokemon Gen 1 and Pokemon Gen 2, because both of those will count in there. So Pokemon might be up there too. Pokemon definitely has a chance. So I think it really does come between Tetris and Pokemon. Those are that's my prediction, but obviously don't let us lead you. Vote with your heart.
Whatever you want, you make. You can change the destiny of this list.
Yeah. We're going to have Atomic Punk be number one. You even know what that is?
Well, now you're going to make that happen. Now people are going to vote for that game.
Of course. that was a Bomberman ripoff that I had as a kid. All right. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I had a lot of fun. Obviously, there's not as much to say with these, but that's why we did 2 of them. So here we go. So yeah, that covers it for our Atari 2600 and 80s PC greatest of all game of all time discussion. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/gvgaming. But even just subscribing to the channel and ringing that bell helps us a ton. So until next time, bye.
Bye, everyone.